I'm William,
And I'm Kat,
and that makes this Info on the Go.
answering questions you want to know.
So today we've already recorded insulin. So this is going to be the second part of that, and you're going to kind of understand why. And we're calling this one GLP-1 Medicine or Privilege. So from behind those celebrity headlines to pharmacy shortages of recent, but GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, they are now everywhere. But behind all of this hype, well, it's a decades old scientific story, one about a gut hormone that could change the way we think about appetite, obesity, and even addiction.
But before we continue, let's explain why we did these in a two-part episode.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of dive into GLP-1 versus insulin and kind of give some key differences before we really get into it.
Yeah, what are they? Well, GLP-1s mimic gut hormones, and it stimulates insulin only when needed. So, and insulin is a pancreatic hormone, directly lowers blood sugar.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that, the pancreas. But how does GLP-1s work? Well, like Kat said, it stimulates insulin release only when blood sugar is high. It suppresses glucagon, which prevents sugar spikes, but it slows digestion and singles fullness, which reduces appetite.
Insulin directly moves glucose into cells, which works immediately, no effect on appetite or digestion.
So the primary use for GLP-1s is in type 2 diabetes, obesity, often used way before insulin.
And then insulin in type 1 diabetes, advanced type 2 diabetes, which is, essential for survival.
GLP-1s often affect, well, weight loss, where insulins can cause weight gain due to fat storage.
Right. And then delivery and duration. So GLP-1s are weekly or daily injections and some oral forms. And insulin, multiple daily injections or a pump, which timing is critical.
GLP-1s offer little risk of hypoglycemia, and insulins have a higher risk of hypoglycemia if they're misused.
Right. And then cost and access. Well, GLP-1s are expensive, $900 to $1,300 a month, and weight loss uses often are not covered. Insulin is a variable cost. It's essential medicine with some generics available.
So, the bottom line to all of this, GLP-1s regulate metabolism and appetite, indirect blood sugar control, and insulin directly replaces or supplements a missing hormone and can be life-saving and life-changing for some people. And you should listen to our insulin episode to get more into that.
Right. And now, what are we going to get into in this episode? Well, what are GLP-1 drugs and why are they making waves?
Then we're going to get into the promise versus controversy over weight loss miracle or metabolic revolution.
So today, we'll trace the origins of science and the cultural impact of GLP-1. So, what is a GLP-1? Well, GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, and it's a hormone produced in the gut, mainly in the small intestines. It's released naturally after eating and plays a key role in blood sugar control, digestion, and appetite regulation.
So, how do they work? First, it signals fullness to the brain, which, well, in turns helps us stop eating. Then, second, it slows digestion and keeps food in the stomach longer, leading to steady blood sugar levels. Then, it stimulates insulin release when blood sugar is high. It suppresses glucagon, which prevents blood sugar spikes. So it really kind of acts as a traffic controller for metabolism, coordinating the gut, brain, and pancreas. And it says, hey, it's time to put the fork down. It has that slow metabolic metabolism, to kind of help stay full longer, right?
Right. So, it was discovered in the 1980s when scientists noticed a puzzle. When people ate sugar, their insulin levels rose higher than when the same sugar was injected directly.
Wow. So they were injecting sugar directly?
Right, right.
Mm,
And
okay.
this meant the gut was sending signals to the pancreas, preparing for it and preparing it for all that sugar coming in. So researchers identified incretins, which are gut hormones that enhance insulin release after meals.
So there's two main incretins that were found. One is GIP, which is GIP, and it stands for glucose dependent insulin tropic peptide. Then you have GLP-1, which we've already told you what that stands for. But
Right.
here's the thing. The GLP-1 became the main focus because it boosts insulin only when blood sugar is high. And this really reduced the risk of hypoglycemia. And then it suppressed the glucagon to prevent excess sugar production, which slows the gastric emptying for smoother digestion.
Right. And these discoveries revealed the gut brain pancreas communication loop, showing the gut's direct role in metabolism and hunger signals.
The early clues about weight loss control for GLP-1s in the early trials, it didn't just help with blood sugar, it reduced appetite, and participants ate less and felt fuller longer. So researchers realized GLP-1s, well, they could be a key for weight regulation, not just diabetes management.
Right. But the problem, GLP-1 doesn't last long. Natural GLP-1 breaks down within minutes in the body, and the enzyme DPP4 destroys it quickly. So, too short-lived for use as medicine.
The solution was to make it last longer, right?
Right.
So scientists researched for long-acting versions, and they found inspiration in nature. The Gila monster's venom, which contained a GLP-1 like compound that lasted longer.
This led to the first GLP-1 drug, Xanatide, which was approved in 2005.
And the name brand would have been Beta, right?
Right.
Later drugs built on that foundation. Liraglutide or Victoza, semaglutide or Ozempic, and there's other modern GLP-1 medications today.
So, GLP-1 is one of the body's natural satiety hormones and the chemical whisperer that tells your brain, put down the fork, you've had enough.
Man, I need that.
Me too.
And just think, this is right before Thanksgiving, so
Oh, man,
who wants to put down the fork?
not at Thanksgiving. You can't put down the fork at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, you really can't.
It's illegal.
So the birth of GLP-1 drugs, so the challenge. By the early 1990s, scientists knew natural GLP-1s, well, they worked beautifully in theory, but not so much in practice. The problem was it broke down too quickly, lasting only for a few minutes in the bloodstream.
And researchers needed a synthetic version that would stay active longer, resist breakdown by DPP4 enzyme, and keep all the benefits, insulin stimulation, blood sugar control, and appetite suppression.
So the goal was to develop a GLP-1 analog, a modified version, if you will, that would mimic natural hormones, but with a much longer half-life.
Right. It would ensure that it could lower the blood sugar safely, support weight management, and be convenient enough for patients to actually use.
And now we get back to that Gila monster.
It's a venomous lizard that's native to the American Southwest.
Yeah, and so researchers, in an unexpected twist, its saliva contained a peptide called exceedin 4, which acted like a human GLP-1, and it was resistant to DPP4, meaning it could last much longer in the body. And this peptide, it became the blueprint for the first GLP-1 drug.
That would be the exenatide or beta, which was approved in 2005 for type 2 diabetes. And based directly on exceedin 4 from the Gila monster saliva, it showed remarkable results. It improved blood sugar control, reduced appetite and food intake, and unintended but welcome side effect, noticeable weight loss in many patients. And this sparked major interest in GLP-1 drugs as potential dual purpose treatments for both diabetes and obesity.
Wow, and this is huge, think about it. GLP-1s now have a dual purpose. They have a duality. Really, I guess they're really maintained for diabetics, but it has this awesome side effect where you lose weight in the meantime, right?
Right.
So the next generation of GLP-1 drugs, after beta success, research escalated rapidly. Well, I wonder why. Because people are going to get behind this drug because now they have a duality they can market it for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So liraglutide, or Victoza as the brand name, it launched in 2010. It was modified for once daily injections. It lasted about 24 hours in the body. It had fewer side effects and was more stable for blood sugar control.
Semaglutide, or Ozempic, which was introduced in 2017, and it's designed for once weekly injections, represented a major leap in convenience and potency, and that led to even greater weight loss and glycemic stability.
These drugs, they transformed care for diabetics, turning GLP-1s from a niche idea into a cornerstone of metabolic medicine. Looking back at insulin, now you know why we did insulin first and kind of taking a look at GLP-1s. This is a
Right.
major breakthrough.
It is. That's insane, especially from a lizard spit.
I was just about to say that. You stole my line. What's up?
What is it? Oh, great minds think alike.
Okay. Well, dang, but we thought alike. So what does that mean?
Maybe we have great minds. At least hopefully. We're working
Hopefully.
on it.
Yeah, we're working on it. Hey, this show has improved my levels, I'm sure, my brain power.
Mine too. And reading about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're learning about all kind of stuff I didn't ever thought about.
Right? All the time. Got to learn something new every day. Well, so how do these GLP ones?
I know it's a
how,
mouthful.
well, how do these GLP ones work in the body? Well, they mimic natural GLP-1 activity. It stimulates insulin release when blood sugar rises and suppresses glucagon to prevent sugar spikes. Slow stomach emptying for smoother digestion, and it signals the brain to reduce the appetite.
Yeah, but all of those kind of add up, and the results are better blood sugar control, lower A1C levels, moderate but consistent weight loss. So the modern GLP-1 drug owes its origins to that desert lizard's spit. So, you want to talk about nature lending a hand in modern medicine? Well, as Kat said, who would have thunk it would have came from the spit of a lizard?
Well, and of course, the unexpected discovery was the weight loss. Okay. While studying for GLP-1 drugs, type 2 diabetes researchers noticed a remarkable side effect. Patients were losing weight, and not just a little bit.
No, weight loss was probably the thing that was most consistent. It was significant and went far beyond what most diabetes drugs had ever achieved.
And the effect was traced back to how GLP-1 suppressed appetite and slowed digestion. That helped people naturally eat less without intense cravings.
And then the clinical breakthroughs really came through the trials of semaglutide, which is the active ingredient in Ozempic, and it showed 10 to 15% average weight loss of total body weight. And the results far outperformed all previous obesity medicines. These outcomes, well, they marked the first time a drug could reliably mimic effects of lifestyle change, but though biologically, and not just willpower.
And
Because for me, I am actually overweight, and I'm here to tell you, willpower breaks down after a minute or two.
it sure does, especially when you're on the move all the time and can only access things like honey
Junk
buns
food,
and
beef
Slim
sticks.
Jims. Yeah, honey buns and Slim Jims.
Are you picking on me right now? I feel like
Maybe
I feel like these are
with a
aimed at
side of
me.
Coke, all that sugar in that Coke. That's definitely all the sugar you need throughout the day.
I feel like all of that is aimed directly at me for some reason.
I don't know why that would be. No idea.
I've laid off the honey buns for a while anyway.
Well, it helps when there isn't any honey buns to buy, huh?
Now I'm just gonna have to stop at the gas station, and I'm gonna have to get me one of those little those blueberry cheese danishes that come wrapped
Oh
up.
man, those are so good.
But I gotta have the beef stick because that's the protein.
It's something, isn't it?
It's something. It's definitely something I need to get out of doing for sure.
And that doesn't help your indigestion either.
It doesn't help the pounds that I'm gaining either.
Mm-mm. Mm. Well, in any case, FDA approval and a new era came in 2021 when the FDA approved Wegovy specifically for obesity treatment.
Yeah, this approval was a turning point in the medical history. So it validated appetite regulation through science, not just through diet and exercise.
Right,
So if you're struggling to lose weight, the FDA says, hey, Wegovy actually can help with you shedding some of those pounds.
right. It opened doors to treating obesity as a chronic psychological condition, not a moral failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And doctors began viewing GLP-1 drugs as potential game changers for a global public health crisis. If you have that patient that say they're bound and they need to lose weight and they can't exercise or whatever, here's a breakthrough that can really help with that.
Right, right. And of course, with that was the cultural explosion. Almost overnight, GLP-1 drugs, especially Ozempic and Wegovy, became popular culture sensations.
Yeah, social media platforms lit up with stories of miracle weight loss,
Celebrities, influencers, and TikTok users began sharing transformations and coining phrases like the Ozempic body.
and the hype generated massive curiosity, but also confusion and misinformation about how the drugs really worked.
Right. Well, the viral surge in demand caused nationwide shortages, of course. So many diabetic patients struggled to fill prescriptions for their life-sustaining medication, and pharmacies began rationing supplies and prioritizing patients with diabetes diagnosis.
Yeah, so in other words, pharmacies began, hey, if you're being prescribed for this, for weight loss, we're going to start rationing these supplies for diabetics because um, there's a shortage in this, and this is a life-altering drug for someone with diabetes.
Right.
And this caused a lot of backlash between pharmacies and patients. But you have to realize that GLP-1 boom sparked complex questions about medicine, morality, and modern beauty standards. So if you're using a drug for weight loss, is that really cheating or simply embracing science?
Right. Does it reduce weight stigma by offering medical solutions or reinforce unrealistic ideals tied to thinness?
So the off-label use, it skyrocketed. Many people started to obtain the drugs without meeting official obesity criteria. Telehealth and wellness startups made access easier, sometimes too easy for people to be able to get a hold of it, which in turn caused this shortage because now you're having all these people being prescribed these GLP-1s just to lose weight, and you're creating the companies can't keep up with it. So now the diabetics, on the other hand, that have to have these drugs for to live, are starting to feel the blunt of it, right?
Right. And, the phenomenon turned GLP-1 drugs into a status symbol, shorthand for discipline, wellness, and affluence.
So, the broader impact here, GLP-1 drugs, they've reshaped the conversation about what it means to be healthy. I would say they have really sparked that conversation, you know?
Right, right. And they forced both the medical field and society to reconsider how we view weight, willpower, and biology.
Yeah, some people see them as a public health breakthrough, and you have others. that see them as a sign of medical overreach into lifestyle territory. I'm going to be honest with you here. I feel like if it's a drug that's going to help you live better and be healthier, well, why not go for it?
Right. I agree. And so by 2024, global sales of GLP-1 drugs exceeded $30 billion, and demand shows no sign of slowing. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy how these GLP-1 drugs have taken off. I say before we get into beyond weight loss and surprising effects, so we take a small break.
Agreed.
Okay, so now that we're back, I guess I can take this part on and then you can just kind of catch up with me.
Sounds good.
Okay, so scientists are finding that GLP-1 drugs may influence far more than just appetite and blood sugar.
And then, of course, addiction and cravings. Early studies suggest that GLP-1 drugs can reduce cravings for alcohol, nicotine, and even opioids, hinting at potential use in addiction treatment as well.
Wow, that is huge.
Agreed.
I mean, that is huge. I was when we were doing research for this, I saw these studies where some of these people said, I was drinking 6, 7 days a week, 5, 6 days a week, and when was taking this, you know, I didn't even have the urge to drink any. And so if you're having that kind of lifestyle that this could impact, maybe that is something that you really need to look at, especially nicotine users, people that having that hard time stop smoking or vaping.
Right, right.
Maybe this is something that you could look at.
Right. And there's also cardiovascular benefits, where clinical trials show that GLP-1 analogs may lower the risk of heart attack and stroke, likely due to improved blood sugar control, reduced inflammation, and modest weight loss.
And then there's brain health and the preliminary data. It shows that GLP-1 drugs are linked to possible protection against Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, as GLP-1 receptors are also found in the brain. I know we're going to get into it, but that's a huge breakthrough. I mean, if this is something that could actually help with that,
I agree. I agree. And then of course, drugs and brain health here, the key mechanism of how that works is GLP-1 receptors are found not only in the pancreas, but also throughout the brain, and particularly in regions tied to memory and cognition, where the activation of these receptors may reduce neuroinflammation, improve insulin sensitivity in the brain, and protect neurons from degeneration.
in the preclinical findings, in the animal studies where the mice models of Alzheimer's dementia, it shows that GLP-1 antagonists like liraglutide and semaglutide, they can reduce the amyloid beta plaques and improve learning and memory. And these results suggest a neuroprotective effect, possibly slowing disease progression.
Right. And in human research, observational studies have found that people with type 2 diabetes taking GLP-1 drugs have a lower risk of developing dementia compared to those using other diabetes medications. And a 2023 meta-analysis in JAMA Neurology reported reduced rates of cognitive decline in GLP-1 users through causation hasn't been proven.
Clinical trials are underway, including Evoke and Evoke Plus, where they're testing whether semaglutides can slow early Alzheimer's progression, and results are expected somewhere around 2026 or 2027.
Evidence is still preliminary, so most studies are small or observational. It's unclear whether benefits stem from direct brain effects or from better blood sugar and vascular health. So, no GLP-1 drug is yet FDA approved for cognitive disorders.
There's hormonal and metabolic disorder research with GLP-1 drugs. It's ongoing to explore how it might help with polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, by improving insulin sensitivity and reducing inflammation.
And it now has scientists asking whether GLP-1 drugs could evolve into multi-system therapy and one medication that supports multiple organs and conditions simultaneously.
But it's not a miracle drug. Despite their promise, GLP-1 drugs are not a one-time fix. Weight often returns when patients, well, when they stop taking the GLP-1 drugs.
Right. And they must be typically used long term to maintain benefits, raising questions about cost, access, and lifelong dependence.
Yeah, and then the common side effects, well, they include nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, fatigue, especially during the first few weeks of treatment. So if you're starting to take this, you're gonna feel these effects greater. But as
Hmm.
you continue to take the medication, that's gonna kind of start to be lesser.
Right. And some users report loss of muscle mass or changes in food enjoyment, though research on these effects are ongoing.
Long-term safety is still being evaluated. While early data is reassuring, scientists are closely watching for subtle impacts on the pancreas, gallbladder, and mental health over time because a lot of these are not going to show up in a couple of weeks of you taking the medication. The side effects probably may not show up for years and sometimes decades.
And some researchers call GLP-1 a metabolic reset button, while others warn it's only pressed as long as the drug is taken.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the research, as long as you're taking the drug, it seems like it's helping with these things, but the minute you come off, like the weight or, the addiction or whatever you're trying to suppress, it comes back. So let's get into the ethical and social debate.
Where access and affordability come in.
Yeah, you know that price tag, it remains one of the biggest barriers. GLP-1 drugs typically cost between $900 to $1,300 per month in the United States without insurance.
Right. And even for those with coverage, prior authorizations and limited formularies make access difficult.
And then you have that skyrocketing demand. The surge in GLP-1 prescriptions for weight loss has dramatically increased demand in the United States, Europe, and other high-income nations.
Pharmacies have faced chronic shortages, meaning some diabetic patients cannot access the medication they were originally prescribed to manage their blood sugar.
Yeah, and these shortages have sparked media headlines and public debates, really highlighting the tension between medical necessity and lifestyle use. We kind of got into that earlier. You know, do you save this for this patient over here that has to have this drug for, it's life-changing for them. Actually, it's life-threatening if they don't receive it, or do you give it to this patient over here because they're using it for weight loss, which diabetes in some cases is just about as life threatening as diabetes, right?
Right. And then, of course, you have global disparities. Well, many low and middle income countries still struggle to provide basic insulin, which is a life-saving medication for diabetes.
Yeah, and in our insulin episode, we was talking about in some of those countries, they have to depend on the black market to receive their life-saving medication.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that to me that is insane. But over in wealthier nations, they're consuming GLP-1 drugs for weight loss and aesthetic purposes, creating a stark contrast in access to this essential medicine for people with diabetes.
Right. And of course, that raises ethical concerns about resource allocation and global pharmaceutical priorities.
Yeah, that's we're not here to judge. We're bringing the facts. That's what we're doing. This brings about those health equity questions, right? Are GLP-1 drugs becoming a new symbol of privilege, accessibility, mainly to wealthy or the well-insured?
Right. And could the prioritization of these medications for elective weight loss widen existing health disparities?
The discussion should also include insurance coverage gaps, high out-of-pocket cost and unequal distribution of healthcare resources.
Right. I mean, to be fair though, like we're talking about lizards who probably don't even match up to the population that they're trying to serve.
No, absolutely not. But I think there is synthetic forms of this. I think that's just where it came from.
Right.
But to
Right.
your point, there's so much demand for it, even the manufacturers can't keep up for it, and they're making bank off of this. You
Right.
know, and then you have people that are taking it for aesthetic appeal, like you're talking about, and then you have people that depend on it to live.
Right.
I mean, where
Right.
do you draw the line in the sand and say, okay, well, you over here, you needed to live, but you can't afford it, and this person can? It raises a lot of different questions.
Absolutely. And the broader implications of those questions really highlights a broader trend in modern medicine. Biotech breakthroughs can outpace equitable distribution.
For it forces society to confront difficult questions. Should lifestyle-driven drug use compete with life-saving needs?
And how do we ensure access to essential medications while still supporting innovation in obesity and metabolic treatments?
Critics argue that GLP-1 craze reinforces diet culture and the idea that thinness equals health or beauty.
Right. And some worry it could intensify weight bias, especially in workplaces, media, and healthcare settings.
And others see it as a medical breakthrough, reframing obesity as a biological condition rather than a personal failure or lack of willpower.
And these drugs are also changing how people perceive their relationship with food. And some describe a sense of emotional detachment from eating, raising deeper questions about identity, pleasure, and control.
I guess really what we're trying to say is that I think are we becoming a culture that looks at body shaming? Because that's basically what we're talking about here, right?
Right,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, are we becoming that culture? That's not
right.
for me to ask, but I mean that's not for me to answer, but yeah, I think that's really what we're trying to say there.
Agreed.
And then you have pharma power and marketing, right? Major pharmaceutical companies have leaned into aggressive advertising with celebrity endorsements, and they start blurring the line between medical treatment and lifestyle marketing.
And of course, TV ads, influencer partnerships, and red carpet mentions have made GLP-1 drugs a pop culture product and not just a prescription.
Yeah, this marketing surge has drawn criticism for oversimplifying risk and downplaying the complexity of obesity and long-term treatment. Like they're downplaying that you have to be on this long term to maintain.
Right, right. And there's also a growing concern about psychological dependence, not addiction in the traditional sense, but fear of losing control over weight or appetite if patients ever stop taking the drug.
We've entered an age where chemistry can control appetite, but we're still learning what that means for humanity.
So, for the first time, medicine can alter appetite at its root, but that power raises the question, should we?
Yeah, those are questions for you, the listener, to answer. So, what is the future of GLP-1s? The next generation. Um, Scientists are looking beyond single hormone GLP-1 drugs. They're looking toward new compounds that target multiple metabolic pathways.
And these next generation drugs aim to enhance blood sugar control, appetite regulation, and fat metabolism all at once.
The dual antagonist, a major leap forward. The standout example is Monjaro, which was approved for type 2 diabetes and marketed for weight loss as Zepbound.
It acts on two receptors simultaneously, where GLP-1 regulates insulin and appetite, and GIP, or glucose dependent insulinotropic peptides, boosts insulin sensitivity and energy balance.
Yeah, so this dual mechanism, it amplifies the metabolic effects compared to GLP-1 standalones.
Right. And in clinical trials, it shows 15 to 20% average body weight reduction, over surpassing Wegovy's results.
It has improved blood sugar control and cholesterol levels.
So the next frontier here is researchers are developing triple acting medications that stimulate GLP-1 receptors, GIP receptors, and glucagon receptors, which can increase energy expenditure and fat burning.
Okay. So the goal here is to create a balanced, comprehensive metabolic therapy, not just for weight loss, but for overall metabolic health. I think that would be a game changer in humanity.
Agreed. Agreed.
But, the convenience and accessibility, future versions may come as monthly injections, really reducing the burden of weekly doses, or oral pills allowing easier and more discreet use.
Right. And these advances could make long term treatment more practical for millions worldwide. And expanding on medical horizons, research is pushing beyond obesity and diabetes into new frontiers where heart disease prevention, fatty liver disease, and cognitive decline and dementia prevention. Some scientists foresee a future where GLP-1 based therapies are part of a preventative medicine, not just a reactive care.
Think about this though. I mean, if they're creating something, in the near future that could really help with heart disease, alcoholism, dementia. I mean, these would be huge breakthroughs in medicine. Widespread use of GLP-1 drugs could reshape multiple industries. Food and beverage, they would see decreased demand for high calorie, sugary foods. Fitness and wellness, new emphasis on metabolic health and appearance. And then the healthcare, it would be shifting resources toward chronic appetite and metabolism management.
Right. And then, of course, there's some economic shifts where potential reduction in obesity related healthcare costs like heart disease, diabetes, and joint problems, but a massive increase in pharmaceutical spending as more people stay on these drugs long term.
So that's a double-edged sword, what you're talking about here. Do you take the drug for weight loss to combat some of these other ailments that you're going to have the cost of, or do you have the cost of the pharmaceutical spending to offset that? It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
Then, society, it may need to refine healthy weight. And this is focusing on metabolic health, not just body size. So the ethical debate persists. Will GLP-1 drugs narrow or widen health disparities? And how will they change perceptions of self-control, nutrition, and body image?
Some experts see this as a profound cultural turning point, a new chapter in how humanity manages appetite, health, and identity.
GLP-1s may do for metabolism what the smartphone did for communication, change everything everywhere all at once.
And analysis predict that by 2030, 1 in 10 adults in the US could be taking a GLP-1 drug.
So you know where the smart money's at.
Right. If you're investing,
Yeah, I mean, if especially if that one company comes out with the triple acting, that would be a game changer in humanity for sure.
right.
I thought our episode on insulin was very informative, but GLP-1 drugs really opened my eyes to something bigger.
Right. I wonder if any of the GLP-1 stuff in the tummy section would be helpful or not. The
Like,
fiber powders or whatever.
yeah, I guess we could do one on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do one on where vitamins as a whole is on there. So we could
Yeah,
definitely take a look at the GLP-1 powder forms.
for sure.
Yeah, we'll add it to the shopping list.
Sounds good.
That thing
It,
is like 50 pages long now.
oh my God.
I think we got enough for a couple of years.
For sure.
Hey, Kat and I are giving away 10 spots for our Patreon page. And if you would like to enter to win one of those spots, shoot us an email or text us using the link in the show notes and let us know why you love the show.
Yeah. So if you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to help us keep the show going, you can do so at Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes.
And William and I want to thank you for listening, whether you're new here or have been with us for a while.
Either way it goes, thank you so much.
Join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, you can share with us your show ideas.
or ask us a question.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow us wherever you get your podcast.
Send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
It does help others find us. And you can also email us at,
infoonthegopodcast@gmail.com.
and you can find a link to that email address in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.